It is November 1st, and Thailand officially welcomes visitors from 63 countries with minimal quarantine requirements. You'll find that things here haven't changed much. We've just had another protest yesterday, more crackdowns on illegal migrants, and our Loy Krathong festival is a go for this year. Just imagine all this happening with everyone wearing masks, lots of sticky alcohol hands, and a bunch of new bureaucratic hoops to jump through. That's coming up in today's program. Let's start off with news we've been dying to hear about. From today, vaccinated tourists from 63 countries can enter Thailand with minimal quarantine requirements. Fully inoculated tourists from approved countries only need to wait in their hotel room for the result of their PCR tests, and then they are free to go where they like. The move has been welcomed by a tourism sector that has been roundhouse kicked to the ground, stomped into pieces, and swept into the sewage drains by the COVID pandemic. The Thai government initially released a list of 46 countries from where vaccinated tourists could enter the kingdom, but then added another 17 countries to the list. The additions are India, Taiwan, Laos, Myanmar, the Philippines, Croatia, Indonesia, Kuwait, the Maldives, Mongolia, Nepal, Oman, Romania, Slovakia, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, and Luxembourg. If you're from any of these countries and you're dying to come back to Thailand, hit that like button to show us some love. The Bangkok Post reports that vaccinated tourists from other countries not listed here are still welcome, of course, but will need to enter via one of the sandbox programs currently being run in 17 provinces. Under the sandbox scheme, vaccinated tourists must remain at their first destination for 7 days and test negative for COVID before being allowed to travel around the country. In the case of unvaccinated arrivals, including those not fully vaccinated, 10-day hotel quarantine is unfortunately still a mandatory requirement. Yutasak Suvason from the Tourism Authority of Thailand says the reopening announcement has prompted a welcome increase in hotel bookings from the 63 approved countries, and the TAT is now expecting over 1 million tourists to come in the next 6 months. Meanwhile, restaurants in the so-called blue zones of Bangkok, Krabi, Phuket, and Phang Nga are now permitted to serve alcohol. In Bangkok, only restaurants with the SHA accreditation can serve alcohol. Bars and nightlife venues across the country remain shut until further notice. Pro-democracy activists gathered in Bangkok yesterday, demanding an end to Thailand's strict lèse majesté law. The law, officially Section 122 of the Criminal Code, prohibits criticizing, defaming, or otherwise insulting the monarchy. The authorities have used the law on numerous occasions to levy charges against anti-government protesters, many of whom are now behind bars. Yesterday's rally took place in Bangkok's shopping district of Raj Prasong, which at this point may as well be known as Protest Row. Participants included the Prodemocracy Rasadon Group, protest movement Thalut Pha, and LGBT groups. They called for the controversial lèse majesté law to be abolished and for their fellow activists to be released from detention. They include human rights lawyer Anon Nampa, the protest leaders Parit Chiwarak, who is better known by his nickname Penguin, and Parupong Dat Nok, otherwise known as Mike Rayong, because I guess he wants people to know that he's from Rayong. Activists collected 10,000 signatures in favor of the law being abolished, and it's understood the petition will be submitted to Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha today, who will probably just ignore it. Protesters also placed paintings and protest messages in front of the Central World Shopping Center, while speakers addressed the crowd and used the opportunity to lambaste the PM and his administration and the lèse majesté law. Prior to the rally kicking off at 4 p.m., organizers came to an arrangement with police, whereby they agreed not to march to the Royal Police Office nearby, provided officers also did not force protesters to disperse. The rally was temporarily interrupted by heavy rain around 5 p.m. before resuming and ending peacefully around 8:30 p.m. Thailand is cracking down on illegal migrants and those who smuggle them into the country as authorities try to prevent imported COVID infections. The Defense Ministry says over 30,000 illegal migrants have been intercepted and deported since the beginning of the year. According to a report, the number arrested continues to rise as the country prepares to reopen to international tourism. Kongship Tantrawanit from the ministry says security checks are being stepped up along the borders, with officials also working with police to crack down on drug smuggling as well. According to Kongship, a number of Thai businesses have been hiring workers from labor brokers, many of whom are involved in the smuggling of illegal migrants into the kingdom. The government is urging companies not to engage in such practices, as illegal migrants will not undergo any form of health screening and could potentially import COVID-19 infections into Thailand. Some state officials are now being investigated for corrupt practices, including being involved in the illegal smuggling of migrants themselves. According to Kongship, most of the over 30,000 migrants deported since the start of the year were apprehended along the border between Thailand and Myanmar and between Thailand and Cambodia. It's understood that most of the arrests took place in the northern provinces of Chiang Mai and Tak, and in the western province of Kanchanaburi, and in the eastern province of Chanthaburi. The suspect allegedly promised a number of Thai women well-paying jobs in massage parlors in Dubai, but once the women were in the UAE, their passports were seized by the traffickers and they were said to be forced into sex work. Thai authorities started investigating the case back in September after a Thai woman made a plea for help on social media, saying she had taken a job as a masseuse but was then forced into prostitution. The labor minister then instructed the Royal Thai Embassy in Abu Dhabi to assist the woman, and she was placed on a flight back to Bangkok. Thailand's Department of Special Investigations is still investigating and warned the public to be wary of agencies promising high-paying massage jobs overseas. Along with the UAE, the department named countries including South Korea, Malaysia, and Bahrain. Thailand's annual Loi Krathong celebrations have been given the OK Krap by Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, but of course, under some restrictions to prevent the spread of COVID. The Thai holiday is on the 12th full moon of the lunar calendar, which falls on November 19th of this year. Krathongs made from banana tree trunks and decorated with leaves, flowers, candles, and incense sticks are floated on rivers and lakes as offerings to the water goddess. In Chiang Mai, Loi Krathong coincides with the Yi Peng Festival, where sky lanterns are released into the air. This year, however, sky lanterns and fireworks are prohibited, and alcohol is also not allowed at the events. The usual policy of mask mandates and social distancing also applies. People are also required to use the Thai Chana app at the entrance to all Loi Krathong events to assist contact tracing in the event of an outbreak. Organizers must set up stations for checking temperatures and providing hand sanitizers. Restrooms on site must be cleaned every 1 to 2 hours. That's the only policy that I'm excited about. And that wraps up our report for today. But if you enjoyed it, you'll definitely love the videos that just popped up here. So check them out to continue watching our shows on the Thaiger channel. And Thailand News Today will be back tomorrow. Meanwhile, you're now up to date on the Thaiger.